Hello friends, you're watching The Night Watchman, where every day you'll hear a brand new horror story that will send chills down your spine. But to keep bringing you these terrifying tales, we need your love and support. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Now let's begin the story. I never thought delivering pizzas could change the way I looked at nights, at roads, at people. For most of my life, nights meant comfort. A quiet street, a hum of traffic far away, the glow of streetlights growing up in southern Ohio. I'd bike home after dark all the time. My mom used to say I had night eyes, that I saw better when things were quiet and the world wasn't rushing around me. Maybe that was why I ended up working late shifts in the first place. Back in 2019, before everything went weird in my life, I worked at a Pizza Hut in Red Haven, Ohio, a mid-sized town surrounded by long stretches of cornfields and the remains of old industrial zones that nobody had bothered to demolish. I used to joke that Red Haven was a town that couldn't decide if it was dying or refusing to die. I was 23 then, taking night classes at the community college, barely scraping by. Delivering pizzas wasn't glamorous, but it paid for gas, tuition, and the occasional six-pack on weekends. And for 2 years, nothing happened. No robberies, no weirdos, no real trouble. The most exciting thing I'd experienced was a drunk dad trying to pay me in scratch-off lottery tickets. But there's a weird truth about routines. If you repeat them long enough, they start to feel like guarantees. As if doing something 1,000 times safely means the 1,001st will be safe too. That Thursday night proved otherwise. It was late October. Rainy season. Temperatures dipping low enough that my breath fogged if I stood outside too long. The kind of cold where pizza delivery suddenly becomes a blessing because the insulated bags feel like handheld furnaces. I clocked in at 5 p.m., same as always. The moment I stepped behind the counter, the smell of dough, cheese, and fryer oil hit me. Comforting, warm, familiar. My manager, Lauren, was already hunched over the POS system, muttering something about inventory reports. "Evening, Isaac," she said without looking up. "You ready for the Thursday wasteland?" "Always ready for free money," I replied, hanging my jacket. From the kitchen, Mike, the cook, leaned out with red sauce splattered on his apron. "Bro, you are way too optimistic for this job," he said. "It's the night shift. This is where hope goes to die." I grinned. "Tell that to my tip jar." He groaned dramatically. Outside, light rain pattered against the windows. Red Haven always smelled like wet pavement on nights like this. For the next few hours, it was business as usual. Late dinners, a family birthday order, a couple of teenagers who giggled too much to be sober. I dropped off pizzas to the same houses I'd been delivering to since I started. Easy work, good tips. By 8:45, the rush had drained out. Lauren turned to me. "You good to close with us tonight?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Any deliveries left?" "Just a couple," she said. "If we get another before we shut down online orders, it'll probably be a straggler." She shouldn't have said that life loves tempting fate. At 9:17, the POS chimed. "A new order." Lauren frowned. "Who's ordering this late?" I checked the ticket. One large stuffed crust pepperoni paid online. Delivery. The address made me pause. 1842 Ridgemont Road. I didn't immediately recognize it. Then I remembered why. Ridgemont was a long, winding stretch on the outskirts, running parallel to the abandoned steel plants. Half the road had houses. The other half was nothing but empty lots and condemned structures. Mike leaned over to glance at the address. "Oh, hell no," he said. "That's near the old Branks warehouse, isn't it?" "Couple blocks from it," I said. Mike whistled. "Creepy as hell out there. Someone tried to break into my cousin's truck near that area last year." Lauren crossed her arms. "You okay taking it?" I shrugged. "It's not like I haven't been there before. People still live out that way." "Yeah," Mike muttered, "but the ones who do are weird." I rolled my eyes. "I'll be fine. It's one pizza." He pointed a finger at me dramatically. "This is how horror movies start, Isaac." I laughed him off. If only I'd listened. The rain picked up just as I pulled out of the Pizza Hut parking lot. My old Nissan rattled with every pothole as I made my way past downtown, across Miller Bridge, and into the quieter residential areas. The later it got, the more deserted Red Haven felt. Houses disappeared behind curtains, dogs stopped barking, and streetlights flickered like they were struggling to stay awake. By the time I turned onto Ridgemont Road, I had already lowered the music. Something about that road always made me uneasy. On my left were run-down ranch houses with peeling paint and sagging roofs. On my right, nothing but overgrown lots and silhouettes of rusted structures. The rain made everything blurry. Trees became dark shapes, and fences looked like broken ribs sticking out of the earth I found 1842 after a slow crawl. A narrow single-story house squeezed between a boarded-up duplex and an empty patch of land. A porch light flickered weakly as if someone was manually turning it on and off. No car in the driveway, no lights in the windows, just darkness and rain. I parked in front and grabbed the pizza bag. As I stepped out into the downpour, I saw him, a tall, thin man standing at the far end of the driveway, where the gravel met the shadow of the neighboring empty lot. He wasn't under an umbrella, wasn't wearing a jacket, just a dark blue hoodie, jeans that looked too long for him, and bare hands hanging at his sides. He didn't move, didn't wave, just stared at me. I swallowed. "Evening," I called, raising the pizza. "Order for, Henry?" He didn't respond. I took a few cautious steps forward, gravel crunching underfoot. "It's already paid for," I said. "Just need a signature." Still nothing. Then slowly he stepped forward, just enough for the porch light to catch his face. He was pale, like basement pale, hair soaked flat against his forehead, and his eyes. His eyes didn't look right, too wide, too focused, like he'd been waiting in the dark for a long time. He walked toward me, each step deliberate. "You're late," he said softly. His voice didn't match his face. It was smooth, almost calm, but there was something off, like he was rehearsing how a normal person sounded. "Sorry," I said. "Weather slowed me down." He stopped 3 feet away. Rainwater streamed down his face, but he didn't wipe it away. "You drive fast," he whispered. My stomach tightened. I guess," I said. "Sometimes." His lips curled into a small, unnatural smile. "You shouldn't." The word hit like a cold slap. I forced a laugh. "Well, yeah, People get hurt when they go too fast," he said. "Sometimes they don't even see what's coming." All I wanted was to hand him the pizza, get a scribble on the receipt, and leave. I held out the box. "Here you go." He didn't take it. Instead, he reached slowly into his hoodie pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "What's that?" I asked. He pushed it toward me. "For you." I didn't want to take it. I don't know why. Something in me screamed, "Don't touch that." But I did anyway. His fingers brushed mine. They were freezing, colder than the rain. I opened the paper just enough to see scribbles. Numbers? A drawing? I couldn't tell. When I looked back up, his face was inches from mine. "Drive safe," he whispered. I nearly stumbled back. Yeah, you too." He didn't move as I hurried toward my car. Didn't watch the pizza, didn't go inside. He just stood there staring at me like I was the one visiting his world. Once inside the car, I locked the door so fast I almost broke the switch. My heart pounded as I pulled away. "What the hell was that?" I muttered. I reached for the folded note on the seat beside me, but hesitated. Instead, I focused on getting back to the store. The rain hammered harder. The wipers squeaked. The roads were almost invisible. Halfway back, I checked the rearview mirror out of habit and froze. A figure walked along the shoulder of the road. Tall, thin, same hoodie, same slow, deliberate walk. My breath hitched. "No way," I whispered. "He can't be keeping up. That's impossible." I blinked hard, looked again. He was gone. I told myself it was the rain, my nerves, a trick of the light. But a voice in the back of my mind whispered, "He's faster than you think." When I got back to Pizza Hut, the parking lot was empty. Lights off, doors locked. Lauren and Mike must have closed early because of the rain. "Great," I muttered. "Fantastic timing." As I reached for my keys, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Drive safe. My lungs stopped working for a moment. The text was fresh, just delivered. My hands shook as I looked up. Across the street, under a broken streetlight, he stood there, not moving, not blinking, just watching me. The rain didn't seem to touch him now. This time, something inside me snapped. I slammed the car into reverse, tires screeching loud enough to echo. I didn't look back, didn't think, didn't breathe. I drove home like the devil himself was behind me. I didn't sleep. Every sound outside my apartment made me flinch. Every passing car felt like it might stop. My phone stayed on, battery draining fast around 3 a.m. Curiosity or stupidity finally got me to unfold the note he'd given me. Inside was a rough pencil sketch. A car, my car, crushed on its side, shattered windshield. A dark figure standing beside it. Below it, too fast. That's when I knew the truth. Whatever he was, whoever he was, he hadn't just been waiting for pizza. He'd been waiting for me. I called Lauren at 9 a.m. "Hey," she answered groggily. "Everything okay?" "I quit," I said. Silence. "What? Why?" "I can't." My throat tightened. "I had a really bad delivery last night." "How bad?" "I think someone followed me," I said. "I'm not going back out there." She didn't argue, didn't question. Maybe she heard something in my voice. Maybe she knew Ridgemont Road too. "I'll process your resignation," she finally said. "Take care of yourself, Isaac." I hung up. That entire day I didn't leave my apartment. Didn't check the mail. Didn't even shower. I kept imagining that tall figure standing just outside my door. Waiting. It's been years since that night. I moved away from Red Haven. Different town, different job, different life. But some nights, when I'm driving alone on a quiet road, when rain smears the windshield, when shadows stretch too long, I look in the rearview mirror, and sometimes for a split second I swear I see him walking behind me. Same hoodie, same slow steps, same smile. And every time I ease my foot off the gas because I can still hear him whisper, "You drive too fast." Story 2. I didn't think delivering pizzas could ruin my life. I mean, really ruin it. Twist it, haunt it, make me doubt every dark hallway and every quiet parking lot since I used to think it was the easiest job in the world. Drive around, hand over a box, maybe smile at a kid holding a dog or a tired parent, grateful to not cook for the night. Easy, predictable, harmless. But that was before the night on Rowan Street, before the Lewisburg incident, before I found out that some buildings still breathe even when nothing alive is supposed to be inside them. My name's Evan Cole, 22, born and raised in the small American town of Lewisburg, Ohio. Population floating somewhere around 9,500 depending on who finally decides to move away. Not exactly the kind of place where horror stories sprout naturally unless you count the mold growing in half the abandoned factories around town. I wasn't a college dropout or anything dramatic. I just paused. I took a year off to figure out why I felt like I was sleepwalking through life. My parents told me it was normal, that everyone feels that existential dread at some point, and maybe they were right. But standing in a Pizza Hut kitchen every night, watching cheese bubble on conveyor ovens, wasn't exactly clarifying my life's purpose. Still, the money wasn't bad. Gas, rent for my tiny studio near the highway, and my obsession with tricking out my gaming setup. It all balanced out. I made enough to live, not enough to be proud of it. But hey, I wasn't starving, so that was something. That Friday night started like any other. The dinner rush hit us like a freight train around 6 p.m., and the kitchen transformed into a chaotic orchestra, pans clattering, employees yelling for toppings, the phones ringing off the hook. I was drenched in sweat before it even hit 8. Our manager, Sam, was pacing near the pickup counter, clipboard in hand, cap crooked, glasses sliding off his nose every 15 seconds. He was a good guy, a little frazzled, but he ran the place well enough. "Evan," he shouted over the noise at one point, "as soon as you're back, I've got 3 more waiting." I gave him a thumbs up, grabbed 2 pizzas for a duplex on Bramble Avenue, and bolted out the door. It was a blur of traffic lights and impatient customers until around 10:30 p.m., when the rush finally died. Half the crew was leaning on counters trying not to collapse. I had just popped the tab on a warm Sprite when Sam called out to me again. "Ev, last one of the night. You deliver this, you're done." Music to my ears. He handed me a single box and receipt. I read the address, 214 Rowan Street, apartment B06. I frowned. "Rowan Street?" I asked. "That's over by the old textile mill, right?" Sam nodded. "Yeah, didn't even know people still lived in that apartment building." But GPS found it, so it should be fine. Should be, I muttered. Rowan Street was practically the graveyard of Lewisburg, a strip of decaying industrial buildings and empty warehouses, the kind of place you only drive through when you're lost or avoiding someone. But whatever, a delivery was a delivery. I tucked the pizza under my arm, clocked out mentally, and headed to my car. The night was foggy, not movie fog, but the thin, hazy kind that creeps along the edges of headlights. The streets were empty, the town quiet. I knew every crack and pothole by heart. But the closer I got to Rowan Street, the more the roads looked like they'd been forgotten by every road crew since 1998. I turned onto Rowan and instantly felt a drop in temperature. The streetlights were dim, every third one flickering. The buildings hunched along the road like old giants trying to hide in their own shadows. Then I saw it, the Rowan Apartments, a squat three-story box of decay with boarded windows on the top floor and a flickering vacancies sign buzzing like a dying insect. A single light glowed above the side entrance. Great, I mumbled, real welcoming. I pulled into the parking lot and instantly regretted it. The asphalt was cracked like broken glass. There were no cars, not one, not even a rusted bike or an old bumper. But the address was right. 214 Rowan Street, apartment B06, basement level. Basement, fantastic. I shut the car off but kept the keys between my fingers, like claws. Something my mom taught me when I was 16. The air felt wrong the second I stepped out. Too still, too quiet, like the night was holding its breath. I walked toward the entrance, pizza balanced under my arm. My footsteps echoed against the building, loud, louder than they should have been. There was a paper note taped to the door, messy handwriting, fresh tape. Deliver to lower level door. Use backstairs. I laughed once under my breath, mostly out of nerves. Yeah, no, that's not creepy at all. Policy said lobby only, no exceptions. But it was nearly 11 p.m. and I wanted to go home. I'd been on my feet for hours, so I circled the building, looking for the stairs. The back stairwell was narrow, bare concrete walls and a metal railing rusted to hell. It dropped down to a basement-level landing with a heavy steel door that had seen better decades. No lights, no doorbell, just darkness pressing against the glass. Perfect, I whispered. I considered leaving the pizza on the stairs and walking away. But some stupid instinct, maybe pride, maybe fatigue, pushed me forward. I descended slowly. Halfway down, a cold breeze crawled up the back of my neck. I stopped and glanced around. Nothing. Just the night watching me. I reached the door and knocked. Pizza Hut, I called, trying to sound cheerful. Silence. I knocked again. Still nothing. Look, I'll just leave it here. The doorknob clicked very slowly, and then the door creaked inward. A breath of stale, icy air rushed out. Hello? I called. No answer. Only a faint, distant humming sound, like machinery buried deep underground. Against every good instinct I had, I stepped inside. The hallway stretched long and narrow, lit by a single flickering bulb at the far end, concrete floor, peeling paint, water stains on the ceiling. It looked like a place the maintenance crew had forgotten decades ago. A row of identical doors lined the walls, all closed, except one. The last door on the left sat slightly ajar, warm light spilling from inside. Hello, I repeated, voice softer now. My footsteps echoed strangely, too sharp, too delayed, like the hallway wasn't built right, like it bent or breathed or moved when I wasn't looking. I swallowed, forcing myself to walk. As I approached the open door, I heard something, soft at first, murmuring, voices, many voices. Whispers overlapping like wind through dead leaves. I stopped just short of the doorway. Your pizza? I said, voice trembling, despite my attempt to steady it. The whispering stopped. Instantly, like someone had hit a mute button. A full, crushing silence filled the hallway. My breath felt thick in my throat. And then the door creaked wider. I stepped forward just enough to see inside. The room was large, maybe an old storage area, but transformed into something I couldn't immediately make sense of. 7 or 8 people sat in a circle on the floor, all facing inward, their backs to me. A single yellow lamp sat in the center, casting warped shadows against the walls. For a moment, no one moved. Then a woman, thin, long hair draped over her shoulders, twisted her head around. Only her head. Her body did not shift. Her eyes were wide, glassy, unblinking. Her lips cracked, pale, slightly parted. I froze. My heart hammered so loud I was sure they could hear it. Then the others turned too. Not by rotating their bodies. No, their torsos stayed perfectly still. Just their heads. Turning too far, turning wrong. 8 glassy stares locked on me. My throat tightened. Pizza? I croaked, holding the box out like a pathetic shield. None of them reacted. Then one of them, a tall man with gaunt cheeks and stringy hair, rose to his feet. His body jerked as though pulled by strings. He stepped toward me, slow, mechanical. The others followed, rising in eerie unison. I stumbled back. Hey, look, I'm just delivering the food, okay? No answer, no blink, no break in their dead stares. They kept coming. My legs finally listened to my brain. I ran. I sprinted down the hallway. Footsteps thundering behind me, I heard them. Shuffling, scraping, their feet dragging against the concrete in irregular, unnatural rhythms. The bulb above me flickered violently as I passed, plunging the hallway into momentary darkness. No, no, no! I hit the stairwell at full speed, grabbing the railing to keep from slipping. The sound of pursuit grew louder, more frantic. Halfway up the stairs, something touched the back of my jacket. I yelped, twisting away so hard I slammed into the wall. I didn't look back. I didn't want to see how close they were. I clawed my way up the remaining steps, burst through the door, and stumbled into the cold night air. Behind me, the basement door slammed shut. I bolted for my car. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped my keys twice before finally getting them into the ignition. The engine roared. I peeled out of the lot so fast my tires screeched loud enough to wake the dead. I didn't check the mirror. I didn't breathe until I was miles away, surrounded by streetlights and humanity again. When I got home, I locked the door, then locked it again, then shoved a chair under the handle. I sat on my bed trembling, pizza grease still on my hands. Every shadow in my apartment looking like a figure waiting to lunge. I didn't sleep. Not even a minute. The next morning, Sam called. Hey, Evan, someone complained you didn't deliver their pizza last night. My stomach dropped. What? I whispered. He sighed. Yeah, they called from some place on Rowan Street. Said they waited all night. I felt my blood go cold. Sam, I said, voice barely there. There's no one living in that building. He paused. What are you talking about? The Rowan Apartments shut down in 2014. City condemned the whole block. I didn't answer. You okay, man? He asked after a moment. I swallowed. I quit, I whispered. What? Evan, seriously? I'm done, Sam. I'm not delivering there. I'm not delivering anywhere. I'm done. I hung up before he could argue. For days, I couldn't shake the faces, the glassy eyes, the broken necks, the way their feet dragged toward me in perfect, unnatural unison. I don't know what was in that basement. I don't know what would have happened if they caught me, and I don't want to know. All I know is this. Some buildings may look abandoned, some streets may seem forgotten, but not everything that dies stays gone. And never again, never in my life, will I deliver another pizza. Especially not to a place where the shadows move on their own. Story 3, I never thought a summer job at Pizza Hut could turn my life upside down. My name is Emily Saunders, 21, a criminal justice major at Oak Ridge Community College. I took the job thinking it would be temporary, just enough to cover rent and gas while I finished my summer courses. Simple stuff, or so I thought. I remember my first day clearly. The smell of fresh dough and tomato sauce hit me as soon as I walked into Pizza Hut 456, tucked in a strip mall off Brookstone Drive in suburban Plainfield. The fluorescent lights hummed and the register dinged non-stop as orders came through. My manager, a tall, stern woman named Carla, gave me the rundown. Emily, delivery is about safety first. Don't go inside any house. If anything feels off, leave. Keep your bag in front of you, trust your gut, and don't take risks for tips. I nodded, pretending to absorb everything. But inside I thought, it's just pizza. How dangerous could this be? Over the next 8 weeks, I delivered to all sorts of homes. Families with toddlers running through the hallways, grumpy old men in worn slippers, college kids cramming in their dorm-style apartments. I got used to the routine. The GPS, the friendly thank yous, the occasional tip, even the cranky ones. It was August when I got the call that changed everything. The order was simple: 2 large pepperoni with extra cheese, cash payment, address 912 Hemlock Way. I hadn't delivered there before. It was a new development on the outskirts of Plainfield. Rows of identical houses, pale gray siding, white trim, small porches with cheap plastic chairs. The kind of place that looks peaceful but feels strangely sterile. I grabbed my insulated bag, double-checked the tickets, and got in my old Honda Civic. The night was quiet, almost unnaturally so. The streetlights cast weak halos over the empty streets. I remember thinking how silent it was. No dogs barking, no cars passing, not even the wind moved the dry leaves scattered on the pavement. When I pulled up to 912 Hemlock Way, the house looked wrong. Not broken, not obviously sinister, just off. The porch light flickered weakly, dust coated the front steps. The windows were tightly shut, curtains drawn. A black SUV sat idle in the driveway, its paint dull under the weak streetlights. I swallowed hard. "Okay, Emily," I muttered to myself. "Stick to the rules. Just drop the pizza, take the money, leave." I rang the doorbell, ding-dong, nothing. I waited a beat, then rang again. The door cracked open a fraction, revealing a pale hand gripping the edge. No face, no words. "Pizza Hut delivery for 912 Hemlock Way," I said, trying to sound casual. The hand pulled back slightly, and a low monotone voice said, "Come inside." I froze. My brain screamed, "No!" But my training kicked in. "I'm sorry, company policy. I can't come inside. Cash or card?" The hand twitched, then suddenly yanked my wrist. Pain shot through my arm like fire. I screamed, dropping the pizza bag onto my other arm for balance. He held on tight. "Come inside," he repeated, voice flat and chilling. I remembered Carla's words from the training. Twist, break the grip, make noise, don't let him control you. I twisted hard, wrenching my wrist free. The man staggered back, surprised. I shouted, "I'm leaving, now!" The door slammed, bang. I didn't wait to see if he came after me. I ran, fumbling with my keys, finally forcing the car into gear. Hands shaking, I dialed 911. The dispatcher kept me calm while a patrol car raced to the scene. Turns out I wasn't the first delivery driver to encounter him. Over the past month, 2 others had vanished. One was found wandering miles away, dazed and dehydrated. The other never returned. Weeks later, the man, Gregory Fields, 45, was arrested, no prior record. Normal on the surface, but his house horrifying. Inside the bedrooms were hidden locks, cameras disguised as smoke detectors, and notebooks meticulously detailing driver routes, schedules, and descriptions. Page 27 had my name underlined with asterisks. I realized then I hadn't been lucky or unlucky. I had been chosen. The weeks after were tense. Every time I delivered a pizza, even familiar addresses felt strange. Shadows seemed to stretch longer. A simple porch light could make my heart leap, but I couldn't quit. Fear wouldn't define me. One night just before closing, I received another order. This time, it was only a short drive to 430 Maplewood Lane. The street was quiet, too quiet. I parked and saw a light flickering upstairs in the house. Like a television casting shadows onto the curtains, I rang the doorbell. No answer. I knocked harder. "Pizza Hut," I called. My voice shook slightly. The door opened slowly. A man in his late 40s standing in the shadows. He looked normal. Too normal. "Ah, yes, pizza," he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I held up the pizza bag. "Cash or card?" "Inside," he said. I froze, remembering Hemlock Way. My stomach churned. "No, sorry, I can't. Please." His smile didn't falter, but he leaned forward slightly. "It's just inside for a second, I promise." Something deep in my gut screamed. I shook my head. "I can't. Please understand. I'll leave it here. I set the bag on the porch, stepping back. "Your loss," he said, voice smooth but hollow, and then he closed the door. I drove back to Pizza Hut, heart pounding, mind racing. That night I sat in the parking lot, hands on the steering wheel, and thought about every delivery I'd ever made. About the pale hand, about Hemlock Way, about how normal a predator could look. Carla noticed. "Emily, you're jittery," she said softly. "Want to take the rest of the night off?" I shook my head. "No, I can't let him win. I won't." Over the next month, I became hyper-aware. Every house, every dark corner, every shadow. I learned to trust my instincts completely. I never went inside. I never hesitated to leave an order behind if something felt wrong. I had control even in a world where some people wanted to take it from me. One evening, months later, I got a text from the police. Gregory Fields had been sentenced. Evidence from his home was enough for life without parole. But I knew the terror he caused wasn't about him alone. It was about how quickly ordinary places could hide extraordinary danger. Now, every time I'm out delivering, I carry more than pizza. I carry awareness, caution, and the memory of that cold night at Hemlock Way. I know real horror doesn't wear a mask. It doesn't wait in dark alleys or haunted houses. It waits on quiet streets behind closed doors, smiling politely, and it preys on the ordinary. I check the bag, the GPS, the address. I take a deep breath and I remind myself, trust your instincts, always. Story 4. I was 23 when I started working the night shift at a small-town Pizza Hut in Willow Creek, Ohio. Not a glamorous job, more like survival. I'd dropped out of community college after flunking out of 2 semesters, living paycheck to paycheck. My car was a rusted-out Honda Civic with a stubborn clutch and an interior that smelled permanently of fast food and wet carpet. Nights were long, quiet, and lonely, but tips after midnight were worth it. People were careless, drunk, or high, and cash flowed easier than credit cards. That Thursday night, the air was heavy, sticky with humidity, the kind that clung to your skin and made it hard to breathe. I was leaning against the counter, scrolling through my phone, trying to ignore the hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. My shift manager, Pete, came out of the back carrying a stack of boxes. "Hey, Jake," he said, rubbing his eyes. "One more run, and you're done for the night. Don't screw it up." I groaned, grabbing the ticket from the printer. The name read L. Harper, and the address was somewhere I didn't recognize. Out past the far edge of town, Willow Creek wasn't big. Past the grocery store and the auto shop, it quickly thinned into woods and abandoned properties. "You sure this is real?" I asked, waving the slip. "GPS says it exists," Pete replied, not looking up. "Quit whining. It's a 20-minute drive tops." I sighed, boxing up a large pepperoni pizza and slipping it into the heat bag. The lot was nearly empty when I stepped outside. The Civic wheezed to life, exhaust coughing in protest. But I managed to pull out onto Main Street. The GPS said 20 minutes. That didn't seem too bad, but something about the address gave me pause. Hollowed out neighborhoods, darkened windows, streets with names I'd never heard. The first 10 minutes were uneventful. I passed shuttered houses, a broken-down gas station with flickering lights, and the cemetery at the edge of town, the kind with leaning headstones and iron gates that looked more ornamental than secure. Then the radio in my car crackled and went static. I fiddled with the dial, frustration growing. The GPS led me down a narrow road, trees crowding in overhead, making the headlights seem feeble. Gravel crunched under my tires as I followed a barely there turnoff. At the end of the drive was a 2-story house that seemed frozen in time, peeling white paint, a sagging porch, and a swing that hung crookedly from a rusted chain. No lights, no cars, nothing. "You've arrived," the GPS beeped. I sat in the car a moment, heat bag on my lap, stomach twisting. My phone had no signal naturally. I stepped onto the porch, gravel crunching, heart thumping. "Pizza delivery," I called, forcing my voice steady. Nothing. Then from inside, a slow scraping of feet on old wood. "Hello?" I said again, louder. My throat was dry. The door creaked open just an inch, revealing a hand, pale, thin, and trembling. It extended toward me, holding exact change and crumpled bills. I froze. The skin looked wrong. almost translucent. Uh, Thanks, I managed. The hand recoiled, retreating into shadow. Then a soft, urgent voice whispered from deeper inside. Please, don't leave me here. I swallowed hard. Who's there? Are you okay? No answer. Then the footsteps upstairs, fast, heavy, deliberate. A woman, maybe 17 or 18, suddenly appeared in front of me. Skin pale, eyes wide, wild. Please, she hissed. You have to get me out. They're coming. My mouth went dry. Who? Who's coming? They take people. No one's supposed to find this place, not anymore. I glanced toward the upper floor. The footsteps were louder now. A man's voice roared, animalistic. Get back here! The girl yanked my arm. Hurry! We bolted toward the car. She threw herself in the passenger seat as I fumbled with the keys. The engine roared to life just as a shadow slammed against the rear window. The glass spiderwebbed and my stomach dropped. Tires skidded on gravel as I tore down the drive, adrenaline surging through me. We didn't speak until the Civic reached the main road and streetlights illuminated her pale, trembling face. What the hell was that? I demanded. They're not human. Not anymore, she whispered. They feed off people, trap them, lure them in with calls, fake orders. You were supposed to be next. I blinked. The pizza order. That was you. No, she said grimly. They make the calls. They pretend. That's how they find new people. Her name was Emily, and she told me they'd taken her 3 years ago. Her parents had reported her missing, of course, but the authorities couldn't find anything. She'd been trapped in that house all this time, unable to escape until now. You? What? How did you survive? I asked. I learned their patterns, how they move. When they hunt, she said. Her voice dropped to a rasp. They're still out there. They can follow. I felt my chest tighten, a cold sweat running down my spine. We need to call the cops. We can try, she said, her fingers gripping the edge of the seat. But you'll see, they're everywhere. And they never die like normal people. Not completely. By now, my Civic had pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour gas station. I killed the engine and reached for my phone. Signal was still dead. I turned to her. She was quiet, staring at the window like she expected shadows to come crawling through the glass. The next hours blurred. We drove toward the next town over, trying to get a cell signal, any signal. Every empty street and dark alley made me flinch, half expecting to see movement in the trees, hear those heavy, echoing footsteps again. When the cops finally took us seriously, the story sounded insane. Squatters? One officer suggested. You sure it wasn't just a prank? I shook my head. Emily's story felt too real. Her haunted eyes, the way she flinched at every shadow, the way the porch of that house still lingered in my memory. They found no records of the house at that address. Hollow Creek Road, 418, nothing. No property, no house, no nothing. I quit Pizza Hut the next day, dropped my uniform in the dumpster behind the building, left the Civic for sale, and moved in with a friend in a neighboring town. I've never delivered a pizza again, but sometimes, when I'm alone, driving home late at night, the air thick and still, I swear I can hear it, a faint, desperate whisper. Please don't leave me here. Story 5, I never imagined I'd end up delivering pizzas for a living. Not at 17 anyway. But in a small town like Maplewood, Ohio, population barely scraping 30,000, your choices are limited when you need cash fast. I wanted a car. Something to get me out of the endless loop of school, home, and weekend shifts at my dad's auto shop. My friend Tyler, who'd worked at the local Domino's for a summer, mentioned they were hiring. It's easy money, he said. And the tips? Man, you could practically buy a car in a month if you hustle. I applied the next day. The manager, a lanky guy named Steve, didn't look impressed, but he hired me anyway. First week, I stuck to the kitchen, slicing pepperoni, boxing salads, wiping down counters. The smell of pizza grease and dough was constant, but the team was decent. And I liked that Tyler would sneak me a free soda when Steve wasn't looking. Then came the delivery shift. "You're gonna cover for Greg sometimes," Steve said one evening, scribbling my name in the schedule with a pen that squeaked. Greg was the main delivery driver, older than me by a decade, always rolling in a beat-up pickup and chewing on gum like it kept him alive. "Don't screw it up, okay?" I nodded, feeling a mix of excitement and nerves. Delivery meant tips. Tips meant car money faster. I could do this. The first few runs were simple. People smiled, some handed me 20s, some barely glanced at me. One time, an old man answered the door, wearing a robe and slippers, holding a mug of what smelled like whiskey. "Evening," he muttered, taking his pizza without so much as a tip. I laughed awkwardly and left. But one Thursday night changed everything. It was late August. The sun had set hours ago, leaving the streets slick from an afternoon storm. Maplewood was quiet at night, the kind of quiet that makes your own footsteps sound loud. Greg came back from a delivery that night looking like he hadn't slept in days. Pale, jittery, hands shaking. He stormed into Steve's office without saying a word. I was stacking boxes, trying not to listen. "I told you I can't do it anymore. Not worth it, man. I'm done." Greg's voice cracked. Desperation bleeding through Steve muttered something, probably threats, and the argument ended with Greg leaving abruptly. When he passed me in the kitchen, he clapped a hand on my shoulder, hard enough to make me wince. "Good luck, kid," he said. His eyes were dark, hollow. "Good luck." And then he was gone. That night, Steve slid a ticket across the counter to me. "Maple Street, prepaid, last delivery. You're closing after this." I punched the address into my GPS. It was on the far edge of town, past the newer neighborhoods, where houses were old and some had been abandoned since the housing crash years ago. My stomach twisted a little, but the pizza was prepaid. I could do this. The house sat at the end of a long, cracked street, number 57, a two-story Victorian with peeling paint, a sagging porch, and windows clouded with dirt. No lights, no cars, nothing that suggested someone lived there. I parked a few feet from the curb, clutching the warm pizza bag like a lifeline. I knocked once. Nothing. Twice. Still nothing. Finally, the door creaked open. A woman appeared, small and frail, dressed in a thin, faded nightgown. Her hair was white and stringy, her skin drawn tight over her bones. But it was her eyes that made me freeze. Pale, unnervingly sharp, unblinking. "You came alone, Chusa?" she asked, voice like dry paper. Yes, ma'am," I said. "Your order, it's prepaid." I held out the pizza. She didn't reach for it. Instead, she shuffled slightly, muttering to herself, her fingers twitching inside the folds of her gown. "Just one last one," she whispered. My throat went dry. Something in her tone made the words feel like a warning. I put the pizza down on the porch. Before I could back away, I heard it. The crunch of leaves behind me. I turned. A man emerged from the shadows, tall, wiry, hair matted and greasy, eyes darting like he hadn't seen sunlight in years. He was barefoot, shirt torn, and moved with a slow, deliberate menace. "Evening, boy," he said, voice low and slurred. My instincts screamed. I bolted, pizza bag swinging, heart hammering so hard it drowned out everything else. I didn't stop until I was in my car. Doors locked, engine roaring, gravel sprayed behind me as I peeled out of the driveway. I didn't tell Steve what had happened. Instead, I lied. "No answer," I said, paying for the pizza out of my own pocket. Safer that way. 2 days later, Steve called me at home. "We had the cops check that address," he said, voice tight. "House has been foreclosed over a year. Should have been empty. Found 3 squatters, 2 men and an old woman. Arrested them." My stomach sank. I thought about the woman's cold, unblinking eyes, the man's slow, purposeful steps. What if I hadn't run? What if I had paused, even for a second? I quit the next week. No more delivery. I got a job at the 24-hour supermarket, stocking shelves. Safe, indoors, cameras everywhere. Life went on, or at least I tried to make it. But some nights, driving past broken-down houses or fields with gnarled trees, I catch myself gripping the wheel tighter, scanning the shadows, wondering if something or someone is still out there, waiting. Because some places don't just feel abandoned, they're alive, watching, hungry for the moment you hesitate. And sometimes you run out of time before you even realize it. Story 6. I never planned on delivering that Friday night. Truth is, I didn't even like being on the road after dark, especially in December. But I felt guilty for covering my coworker Jake's shift at the Maple Street Pizza Hut in Ashwood, Pennsylvania. His sister had gotten into a minor accident earlier that week, and he was juggling hospital visits and work. I usually stayed in the kitchen, tossing dough, sliding pies into the ovens, but Jake insisted I take the road once in a while. "It's just a few houses down the street, man," he'd said. Easy money, he called it. I shrugged my jacket on over my hoodie, the smell of marinara and baked dough clinging to me, and grabbed the insulated delivery bag outside. The December air was sharp, the kind that cuts through scarves and gloves. Snow had fallen lightly, covering the streets in a thin, crunchy blanket. "Don't forget, Todd," Maria, the shift manager, called from the counter, her voice cutting through the kitchen hum. "Last delivery just came in, number 112 Hollow Ridge Drive. Cash tip. Guy said he'd pay well if you get it there fast." I froze for a second. Hollow Ridge Drive? I'd lived in Ashwood my whole life and never heard of it. "It's, kind of far, right?" I asked, trying to mask the tension creeping into my chest. Maria shrugged, eyes sharp but patient. "Not too bad. Map says 20 minutes. Road's clear. Come on, you're already in your car, right?" I nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, 20 minutes, then home, then a beer, then sleep. Easy money." The drive started normal. The Civic's heater coughed weakly, blowing lukewarm air into my face. The roads were mostly empty, just the occasional truck rumbling past, and the snowflakes twirled in the headlights like tiny dancers. I sang along quietly to the radio, telling myself I was overthinking. Hollow Ridge wasn't that far, just a long stretch on the outskirts of town. Then the GPS directed me off the main road. I blinked at the exit. The sign was almost falling apart, the paint peeling in thick curls, and a gust of wind made it swing on its hinges. Hollow Ridge Drive. 1 mile, I hesitated, then forced the Civic onto the ramp. From the moment I left the main road, the town seemed to disappear. Hollow Ridge was practically abandoned. Streetlights flickered weakly, some completely dead. Snow had already begun to pile along the sides of the road, making the asphalt slick. Every house I passed looked empty, darkened windows staring like blind eyes. My hands gripped the wheel tighter. I spotted 112 Hollow Ridge after what felt like an eternity. The house was squat and made of dark, weathered wood, with a sagging porch that looked ready to collapse. Only a single porch light glowed, flickering weakly against the wind. The driveway wasn't plowed, and there was no car. My stomach tightened. I stepped out, my boots crunching against the snow. The cold hit me like a wall, but I convinced myself it was just the weather. I made my way up the porch stairs, careful of the rotten wood. The door opened before I could even press the bell. "Finally," a voice rasped, weak but oddly cheerful. The man standing there looked wrong. Not in the obvious horror movie way, but in a subtle, dissonant way that made my skin crawl. He was thin to the point of fragility, wearing a faded sweater. His skin was pale, almost grayish, and his hair hung in limp strands across his forehead. But it was his eyes, too dark, too still, staring like he was memorizing every part of me, that made my chest tighten. "You're the delivery guy?" he asked, voice shaky but deliberate. "Yeah, large pepperoni and sausage," I said, forcing a smile. He nodded, his smile far too wide. "Good, come in. Warm up while I grab my wallet." I froze. My instincts screamed, no. But the warmth inside the house was inviting, and the wind outside was brutal. I hesitated. Sure," I said finally, stepping inside. The house smelled of damp wood and something sour, metallic. It was colder inside than outside. The furniture was old and coated in dust, and the floorboards groaned under my weight. The man shuffled off toward what I assumed was the basement. "Downstairs, my wallet," he called. "Won't be a minute." "Downstairs," I frowned. Why would anyone keep their wallet in the basement? I shifted, looking around. That's when I noticed it. The scratches on the floor, long and deep, as if something heavy had been dragged. My fingers tightened around the pizza bag, then I heard them. Footsteps, but not the man's. Soft, deliberate, echoing from the basement. My heart leapt into my throat. I took a cautious step backward toward the door. "Stay a moment," the man's voice echoed from below. Calm, too calm. I yanked at the handle. Locked. My stomach dropped. From the shadows of the basement came shapes. Tall, thin, pale faces hidden, but eyes reflecting the faint light, glinting in a way that made me want to scream. I can't," I stammered, stepping back, heart hammering. "Stay," the man repeated, stepping into view, still grinning. The shadows shifted behind him. Panic took over. I didn't think. I ran. Through the nearest window, glass exploded under my hands and knees, snow instantly mixing with the warmth of broken blood from a cut on my palm. I scrambled to my feet and bolted for the Civic. The front door creaked open, and a figure emerged. Not just him, the shadows too. I slammed into the car, yanking the keys. "Come on!" I yelled, turning the ignition. The engine sputtered but roared to life. Tires spun in the snow. I tore backward, not looking at the porch, not listening. Once on the main road, I called Maria, voice shaking, trembling so badly I could barely speak. "Maria, something's wrong," I whispered. 112 Hollow Ridge. "It's not. There's something." "Calm down," she said, voice low. "I'll send someone to check, get back here." The police arrived later. When they went to investigate, the house was empty, boarded windows, dust everywhere. The basement was real, though, and inside, dozens of old pizza boxes from various places, all neatly stacked. Some dated back years, some even from restaurants that had closed. No signs of anyone living there. No signs of recent habitation, only the boxes and faint stains on the floor that no one mentioned. I never delivered again. Not for work, not for friends, not even if someone begged. Ashwood felt smaller, the roads darker after that night. Every winter when snow drifts cover the streets and the wind moans through the trees, I remember that house, the shapes, the eyes, the quiet patience of the man who waited for me, and the ones behind him waiting too. There are things out there you don't want to find, and worse, things that are waiting to find you. Story 7. I never thought that working a simple pizza delivery job would turn into the worst night of my life. My name is Tyler Green, and I was working at a local Domino's in Hawthorne, Michigan. I hadn't always been a pizza delivery guy. I'd spent 2 years at community college before realizing I had no clue what I wanted to do with my life. Domino's wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills, and tips sometimes added up to enough for rent. Hawthorne was one of those towns that felt frozen in time. A place where everyone waved at you if you drove by, where the biggest scandal of the month was a lawn gnome stolen from Mrs. Calhoun's yard. Most people in town liked it that way, but that quiet can hide a lot of stories. Old stories, the kind people whisper about but never talk about too loudly. It was a Friday night in mid-November, the kind of cold that made your lungs ache when you breathed. I was folding pizza boxes in the back room, half watching reruns of Friends on the dusty TV in the corner, and half checking my phone for messages I didn't really care about. "Tyler," called out Dan, my manager, a tall guy with thinning hair and a permanent frown. "You feel like taking the late one tonight?" I looked up, frowning at the clock. "Late? How late are we talking?" He slid a receipt across the counter. 27 miles out past Willow Creek Road. Big order, 4 large pies, 2-liter sodas paid over the phone. The guy didn't give a name, just the address. I squinted at the receipt. Willow Creek Road was barely a road, really more of a winding dirt path through thick forest. Out there at night, people usually avoided it. "Dude, are you sure you want me to go?" I asked. "That place, it's creepy as hell." Dan shrugged, taking a sip of his lukewarm coffee. "It's a delivery, Tyler. Just stick to the directions and be back before midnight. Big tip. Could be worth it." I hesitated for a second longer than normal. My gut twisted. Something felt off, though I couldn't put my finger on it. Big tip or not, the thought of driving down that long, empty road in the middle of nowhere didn't sit right, but money's money. I grabbed the insulated bag, tossing in the pizzas, and headed for my beat-up silver Corolla. Outside, Emma, my coworker, leaned against the wall smoking. "Late night delivery?" she asked, exhaling smoke into the cold air. "Yeah." "Willow Creek Road," I said. Her eyes went wide. "Tyler, that place? You're not serious, right? People around here don't go down that road at night. There's stuff there." "Stuff?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. My stomach twisted anyway. "Old stories, people disappearing, trucks abandoned. My cousin's friend went missing there 2 years ago. Never found. Police didn't find anything." I tried to laugh it off. "It's just the woods, Emma. Worst case scenario, I get lost and freeze my butt off." She shook her head, serious. "Just text me when you get back, okay?" I promised, sliding into the driver's seat. I fired up the car, tossing the bag on the passenger seat. The engine sputtered, the heater kicking in slowly. I tuned the radio to a classic rock station and pulled onto the main road, the city lights fading behind me. The first 15 minutes were nothing, empty streets, occasional headlights in the distance, deer reflecting my headlights with eerily glowing eyes. By the time I turned onto Willow Creek Road, the pavement disappeared under a blanket of fog. The trees leaned in on both sides, branches scraping against the car, the gravel crunching under the tires. My phone had already lost signal. The address Dan had scribbled down was vague: 452 Hollow Ridge Lane. There were no signs marking the road, just an old wooden post pointing down a narrower dirt path. I turned, my car bouncing over potholes, my heart beating faster with each yard. The fog grew thicker, suffocating the headlights. After 10 minutes of crawling, I finally saw it. A house, an old 2-story farmhouse that had clearly seen better days, sitting alone in the clearing. The kind of place you only see in horror movies. The kind where the air itself feels heavy and wrong. No lights, no cars, just the silhouette of the house against the thick fog. I parked a little way off, leaving the engine running. Grabbing the pizza bag, I stepped out. The cold hit me immediately, sharper than I'd expected. My footsteps sounded deafening in the silence. Branches cracked somewhere behind me, and I turned, heart hammering. Nothing. The porch creaked under my weight as I approached. There was no doorbell, just a rusted brass knocker. I knocked 3 times, waiting. Nothing. "Pizza delivery," I called, my voice cracking slightly. Silence. I tried again, louder. Still nothing. I stepped closer, peering through the grimy windows, darkness. Just shadows, like the house itself was swallowing light. A dragging sound echoed from inside. Slow, deliberate. I froze. My mind screamed to run. My feet didn't move. Then it came again. A faint, uneven scrape, like someone moving across the floor. "Hello?" I called, voice shaking. "Your order." The sound stopped abruptly. I thought I'd imagined it. Then a whisper, barely audible, came from the darkness beyond the door. "You shouldn't be here." I stumbled backward, nearly dropping the pizza bag. My heart was racing. I fumbled for my phone. Dead. No signal. I ran to the car, heart hammering, and locked the doors. My hands shook as I tried the engine. Nothing. The car refused to start. The fog thickened, turning the world around me into a gray wall. I could hear it then. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, moving across the clearing. Heavy. Wet. Someone or something was coming. I fumbled with the keys, finally hearing the engine roar to life. I slammed the car into gear, tires skidding across gravel, headlights cutting through the fog. The sound behind me picked up pace, matching my speed. Something was running. Something big. I didn't stop until the clearing ended and the main road appeared. The fog thinned and streetlights came into view. I breathed, shaking uncontrollably. I didn't check the rearview mirror. I didn't want to know if it had followed me. I returned to Domino's hours later, hands trembling, eyes wide. Dan was wiping down counters. "Where were you? That was hours." I got lost," I muttered, voice hollow. Emma ran up, eyes wide. "Tyler, I was worried sick. Where did you go?" I looked at her, barely able to speak. "Willow Creek Road, Hollow Ridge Lane. Don't go there. Don't ever go there." Dan frowned. Tyler, what are you talking about? It's just some old farmhouse. I I saw something, someone or something was in that house. It shouldn't be there. Emma grabbed my arm. You're scaring me. I'm not joking, I swear. The moment I knocked, I heard it. Something dragged across the floor, whispered my name. I thought it wanted me to stay. Dan shook his head, brushing it off. Late night delivery nerves, man. You need sleep. But I couldn't sleep. Not that night, not the night after. I drove past Willow Creek Road once. The fog thick, the trees silent, and sometimes when the wind blows just right, I swear I can still hear it. The dragging footsteps, slow and deliberate, echoing in the woods. People in Hawthorne still whisper about Hollow Ridge Lane, but I've never told anyone what I saw. I don't want them to go. Some nights, when I close my eyes, I see her. A pale figure at the edge of the clearing, grinning, waiting. And I remember the sheriff's words told to me in a hushed, serious tone. Tyler, some roads, some houses, they're not meant to be visited at night. Promise me you'll never go back. I promised, and I'll keep that promise. Story 8. I never thought a simple late-night pizza delivery could change my life. Honestly, when I took the job at the Pizza Hut in Ashwood, Pennsylvania, I thought it would be the perfect mix of easy money and quiet nights. I'd been in college for 2 years, barely scraping by, and I needed cash. Delivery seemed safe. Just drive, drop off a pizza, collect the tip, nothing risky. I was 21 when I started. My name is Luke Daniels. I grew up in Ashwood, a town that's sleepy in daylight and almost ghostly at night. It's mostly families, an old mill, and stretches of farmland that no one walks after dark. I like the calm, the familiar streets, and the low-key chatter in the Pizza Hut lobby during shifts. At first, delivery was as boring as I expected. Fridays and Saturdays were busy, but Thursday nights, those were my favorite. The streets were empty, the tips were usually better because people felt guilty ordering so late, and I could play my music in peace. I got into a rhythm, memorizing routes, perfecting the customer service smile, and counting change with my eyes closed. But then there was the night that made me quit forever. It was a Friday evening, mid-October. The sky was gray, and light rain was falling, misting the windshield as I drove to the Pizza Hut for my shift inside. The smell of grease and cheese was comforting. My coworker, Rachel, was at the register, scrolling through her phone. Our manager, Joe, was in the office, and the cook, Dan, was leaning against the counter, rubbing his eyes. Another slow night, I muttered, tossing my bag onto the table. Don't jinx it, Rachel said without looking up. Yeah, I sighed. I clocked in and leaned against the counter. The first couple of orders were small, just a few pizzas, nothing unusual. But around 11:15, the system dinged with a new delivery request. I groaned. The order was for 17 Edgewater Lane. I froze for a moment. Edgewater Lane wasn't a busy street. In fact, it was at the far edge of town, past the old industrial district that everyone avoided after dark. Most of the houses there were old and neglected, the kind of place kids in school whispered about. Rachel noticed my hesitation. You okay? Yeah, just kind of far, I said, forcing a shrug. Dan let out a low whistle. Edgewater Lane. That's a little spooky, man. You sure you want to go? I rolled my eyes. It's just another delivery. I grabbed the pizza bag, a large cheese with extra pepperoni, and stepped out into the drizzle. The rain was light but cold, and it soaked through my hoodie quickly. I started the car and drove slowly, headlights cutting through the misty street. The further I got from the main roads, the emptier it became. Streetlights were either flickering or completely dead. The houses were old, some abandoned, their windows like dark, unblinking eyes. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination. I found the house easily enough, 17 Edgewater Lane. It was a small 2-story home with peeling paint and a sagging porch. No car was in the driveway, and the lights inside were off. A single porch light buzzed faintly, struggling against the rain. As I stepped out with the pizza, I noticed movement. A figure was standing just beyond the yard, near the edge of the broken fence. A man, tall and thin, wearing a dark hoodie and jeans ripped at the knees, stood completely still. Just staring, I swallowed hard. Hey, pizza delivery. No response. I stepped closer. $21.50, please. Slowly, the man reached into his pocket. He pulled out a small pile of coins, shaking as he counted them. I held out my hand, the cold metal pressing into my palm. Finally, he handed me the change and a single crumpled dollar bill. His fingers were icy, stiff as he pulled away. Thanks, I muttered, eager to leave. As I turned toward my car, he spoke softly, almost like he was thinking out loud. You drive too fast, not safe. I froze. His tone. It wasn't mocking, it wasn't casual. It was deliberate, almost menacing. Yeah, guess I get a little impatient sometimes, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. His smile stretched a little, too wide for his face. You shouldn't. That was enough. I jumped back into my car, locked the doors, and started the engine. As I pulled away, I glanced in the rearview mirror. He was still standing there, motionless, the rain dripping from his hood. I tried to calm down, telling myself it was just some weird guy. People are strange, I thought. I took the long way back, avoiding the old industrial district. But when I reached Main Street, I caught a movement in the mirror. He was following me, on foot, slow, deliberate, keeping pace with my car. Panic set in. I floored it, my heart hammering in my chest. The city lights ahead should have been comforting, but the thought of him walking behind me in the rain made my stomach churn. By the time I reached the Pizza Hut parking lot, the place was dark and empty. Joe, Rachel, and Dan were gone. I killed the engine, breathing heavily. My phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. Nice driving, Luke. I froze. My hands shook as I looked up. Across the street, under the flickering streetlight, he stood, that smile, that same tilt of the head. I slammed the keys into the ignition and tore down the street, tires squealing on wet asphalt. I didn't stop until I reached my apartment. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak, every gust of wind made my pulse spike. The next day I called Joe. I can't work tonight. I quit. No notice, no explanation, just a hung-up line. Some nights, even years later, I still see him in my dreams. The thin man in the hoodie, standing in the rain, waiting for the next delivery, waiting for me. I never took another late-night delivery job,